So this is about this man. He was a Jew. He was lost in the wilderness, in the woods. All of a sudden, a hungry bear began to charge at him. He had no way to escape. The only option he had was to pray to God. He prays to God and said, "Please, God, make this bear a good Jew." And the bear stops. Put on a kippah and said, "Hamoitzi lechem min haaretz." I want to talk to you today about what's your excuse. What's your excuse? This week's Parsha Noach, is very interesting because we see the worst of humanity. You're not going to see humanity behaving this way ever again in the Torah. We're going to have bad situations. We're going to have situations where God is angry and set a plague or a punishment to a group of people. But never, ever like what happened in this Parsha. We don't have a full account of everything that happened in that generation, but a few hints that we have in the Torah are enough to make us understand that there was nothing good about people. They basically brought things like evil, jealousy, envy, rivalry, betrayal to the next level, to levels that we never experienced again. And I realized that pretty much the whole book of Genesis, it will continue with all those bad traits of human beings, but in a different level, in a different way. This week we see how much destruction all those feelings, if they go out of control, can bring to the world. Now the interesting thing, it's there is a difference between the generation of Noah, the generation of the flood, and our generation. And I was realizing why we never reached that level of evil ever again in history. And the rabbis explained that. They said that it was something very interesting. If you go back to the Parsha, you will realize that it took Noah 120 years to build the ark. And I understand, he never went to engineering university or anything, and he has to build the ark, right? But come on, 120 years to build the ark? It wasn't that big to begin with to take him. It wasn't a cathedral. That's what if you go in history, a cathedral would take 100 years to be built. But an ark made out of wood, 120 years. And the rabbis explained that it was a purpose. There was a purpose for having Noah building the ark for 120 years. And the purpose was to give humanity more chances to learn from their mistakes and to change. And why did it need 120 years to learn from their mistakes? We'll say in a minute. Because towards the end of the Torah, in the book of Deuteronomy, actually I have my quote here. It was chapter 11, verse 17. God, actually it's Moses in this case, Moses is warning the Jewish people what is going to happen when they enter to the land of Israel if they make the mistakes that the generation of the flood made. If they forget God and if they misbehave, what is going to happen to them? Well, let me read what Moses says. Ve'avadete meheira me'al aretz hatova. Translation is, you will perish quickly from the good land. And then again, why God gives one generation 120 years to change, and this generation that is going to enter to the land of Israel says, if you don't learn it right away, you're out. What's the difference? And the answer is very practical, actually. It's very practical, and it's actually a fair situation. Rashi explains that the generation of the flood had no teachers. They didn't have role models. They didn't have books. They didn't have anywhere to learn ethics from. The generations that enter to the promised land. They had the Torah, they have Moses, they have the elders, they have Joshua. They have somebody to teach them what is right and what is wrong. And from there, the rabbis explained that every generation that came after that have a benefit that the previous generation didn't have, because we have even more teachers. We have even more precedents and examples that we can share with each other to learn what is right and what is wrong. We have history to teach us what we should do. The generation of the flood, unfortunately, didn't have anything like that. And we all know that there are basically two ways to learn what to do. Basically, two ways. And the way I like to say it, both ways starts with the letter M. Number one is mistakes. Right? This applies to every single human being. If you live long enough, eventually you're going to learn from your mistakes. But the problem with learning from mistakes is it takes a long time. It takes a long time for us to understand what we did wrong and to correct, and we make a mistake again, and then we learn from that and so forth. And that is the generation of the flood. It takes a long time for them to learn from their mistakes what works, what doesn't work. The second way of learning, and it's a way faster one, and that is the one that applies to us. It's also with the letter M, and it's with mentors. The mentors can teach you something way faster. Why? Because they already made the mistakes. So they will teach you how you can avoid the mistakes, so you can go further, faster. So we have two situations here that they can teach us something. We can always choose to learn from our mistakes. That's not a good one. It's always better if we can learn from our mentors. You know who understood this? Abraham. Abraham understood that you don't have to wait until you make enough mistakes to learn. And according to the Midrash, Abraham didn't hesitate to reach to a mentor to learn this principle. And you know who was Abraham's mentor according to the rabbis? Noah. I said, what do you mean Noah? Come on. Hold on a minute. Abraham is 10 generations after Noah. How could Abraham learn from Noah? Noah never wrote a book. He wasn't a publisher. He was a builder, but not a publisher. And I said, well, let me share this with you. This is fascinating. Listen to this. According to the Torah, Noah was 600 years old at the time of the flood. Okay? But then we learn that he was 950 years old when he died. But then if you count generations, Abraham was born 294 years after the flood. I'm not great at math, so I trust the math from the rabbis, which they say that there were 58 years of overlap in the life of Abraham and the life of Noah. Not only that, actually the rabbi said that Abraham did learn a little bit from Noah, but his main teacher was Shem, Noah's son, that he even overlapped with Isaac a little bit. And I said, okay, that's great. But Abraham learned everything from Noah, from Shem. What happened with the rest of humanity of that generation? We read in the Torah that only Abraham was the one that took advantage of all the knowledge from those people, from those mentors. What happened with all the others? They didn't care. They didn't care. And that also applies for each one of us. Every generation have the benefit of knowledge, because we can accumulate knowledge generation after generation. But it's up to you to go and get that knowledge. The knowledge is there for us, but only if we want to access it. So that's why God says through Moses in Deuteronomy, you know what? Future generations, punishment and consequences are going to come way faster than the generation of Noah. Why? Because every generation had more and more and more resources to become better to understand what works, what doesn't work. But it will be up to every generation to understand the principle and to learn from it. Look at our generations right now. I don't think there was any generation in history that had the resources to learn Torah if you want. All you have to do is go to the internet and you have thousands of free resources to become better Jews, to know more Torah. How many people actually go to them? Not too many. The same way that in the generation of the flood, even after 120 years, nobody wanted to learn from their mistakes. Even 10 generations after, only Abraham wanted to learn from a mentor. And the same happened with us. The resources are there. But did we learn the lesson? Did we learn the lesson that we can find a teacher and a mentor anytime we want? Or we are going to have to wait until we learn from our mistakes? So this is an opportunity. Every time we read Shabbat Noach, to understand that we have the mandate, we have the obligation as Jews to become better, and the resources are there, but you have to give the first step and to understand that Torah can make you better, and if you have good guidance, you can go further and faster. Shabbat Shalom.